Hi, my name is Sarah Kubota, and I am presenting focus stimulation, which is an approach to language intervention. So, what is focus stimulation? Focus stimulation is a therapy technique, and it's performed through providing a high density of models of target forms within a meaningful context such as play. So, here are some populations which can benefit from focus stimulation in therapy. Late talking toddlers, children with specific language impairment, children with cognitive impairment, bilingual and English language learners, children with autism spectrum disorder, children with specific learning disorders, and also typically developing children can benefit from focus stimulation to increase their language skills. I'd also like to add that children of any age can really use this therapy to benefit. So here are some key points of the focus stimulation therapy technique. The therapist uses frequent and highly concentrated presentations of the target form. This creates multiple opportunities for the children to hear the target form, and the ultimate objective is to provide opportunities for children to produce the target on their own. Targets are pre-selected prior to treatment and delivered in a naturalistic setting. So I also want to talk a little bit about the continuum of naturalness. The concept of the continuum of naturalness is how intervention contexts can be placed on the basis of their similarity to everyday situations in which the child has frequent opportunities to communicate. So at one extreme, you have drill therapy, and at the other is conversational activity in which targets are elicited naturally. Focus stimulation therapy lies in the middle of that continuum. The therapist controls the context to elicited target forms, but they do so in an interactive play context that is meaningful to the child. So what does focus stimulation do? Research by Wisner and Robertson explained that this approach is very effective for improving comprehension as well as production of a form. This is because the clinician provides models in a meaningful context. Wisner and Robertson also provided evidence that this therapy approach is effective at teaching form, content, and use when implemented by both clinicians and parents. Similarly, Wolf and Heilman report that this therapy technique has been effective to increase vocabulary and grammar in children with an expressive language disorder. It should also be noted that focus stimulation does not usually produce instant results, but has been shown in research to be effective when used on a regular basis. Some settings for implementation of the focus stimulation therapy technique include early intervention centers, schools, and home. In early intervention centers, and when possible at schools, the child's caretaker is encouraged to be an active participant in therapy. This is so that they can continue modeling the targeted forms at home and also share with any other person that interacts with the child at home. The child's home is his natural environment and thus the best context for learning. You'll have to select a targeted form prior to a therapy session. This allows you to prepare and build as many opportunities to elicit and provide examples of the targeted form in your session. Some examples of targeted forms can address vocabulary development or semantics through use of vocabulary words such as categories, like if you wanted to expand on their types of food or action words or prepositions. Other categories include grammar skills, which include syntax and morphology. For morphology, you could focus on specific inflectional or derivational morphemes. For syntax, you can focus on different constructions including declarative, interrogative, and imperative. You could also tackle pragmatics and select a form addressing abstract language, turn-taking, or providing background information. The options are really endless because you can tailor a lot of different activities to focus on a targeted form. Next, you'll need to select materials. This is so that you can elicit the targeted form. Familiar toys are a good idea because they're familiar to the child, and that may lessen the cognitive load and stimulate the child's natural environment as much as possible. Some examples of books that are conducive for the focused stimulation therapy are The Very Hungry Caterpillar, The Foot Book, Are You My Mother, The Doorbell Rang, and Goodnight Moon. Some examples of songs include Five Little Ducks and Itsy Bitsy Spider. And of course you want to keep in mind the age and make sure that your materials are age appropriate for your child. In addition to these books and songs, they can easily be modified for focused stimulation if you break free of printed text. This allows you to talk the book or tweak the lyrics of songs to fit to your targeted goals. Next, I'll talk about how you can implement focused stimulation into your therapy session. First, the clinician models the target form in a structured but interactive play context. The child is provided with the targets but is not required to respond. It's recommended that you model the targeted form at least 5 to 10 times during your session. Also, if you stress the targeted form in your sentences, it becomes more salient and more effective for the child to learn. It is likely that during your session, a child learning a targeted form will respond with something other than the targeted form. When this happens, the clinician should respond appropriately to the intended meaning and continue on with further models of the targeted form. If the child makes an unsuccessful attempt, the clinician can respond with an expansion to correct the form. Brown Bear is an excellent book to use with focused stimulation in therapy. Many children with low language skills have difficulty answering WH questions appropriately. This book repeats the phrase, "What do you see?" on every turn of the page, and the child has an opportunity to answer on every turn of the page. This provides over the 5 to 10 recommended models of the targeted form, which in this case would be WH questions. If the child responds inappropriately, such as saying only the color of the animal, or in this case, white, the clinician can expand and provide the targeted form, such as, "Yes, that is a white dog." This book can also be modified for use by the therapist to address other WH questions, such as, brown bear, where do you live?" As I mentioned earlier, it is helpful to place emphasis on the targeted forms to make them more salient. Here is another example of how you can implement focused stimulation therapy. Using these dress-up dolls, you can target many forms. For example, you can target the inflectional morpheme noun possessive S by placing the dress-up clothes on the dolls and saying, "Daddy's hat," or "Mommy's dress." If the child were to incorrectly answer brother in response to "Whose glasses are these?" the clinician would expand by saying, "These are brother's glasses." Again, you want to emphasize the targeted form when speaking. Thank you for watching my presentation. Focused stimulation can be used in many different settings with many different populations to target many goals. I hope that you'll be able to use this technique in your own therapy sessions in the future.